I need them too. So, good morning, everybody. We wanted to start off by saying thank you so much for agreeing to serve on this Creative Communities grant program set of panels. It's important work, and we so appreciate the time that you are devoting to it. We thought we'd start off with a quick introduction around the room so we know who's here, or so everybody knows who's here. And Caitlin, let's just go on the screen. You and I can do it first, and then if you all would give your names, what city you're calling in from, and or town or wherever, and what panel you're serving on, that would be really great. Caitlin, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Thanks, Karen, and thank you all for agreeing to serve as grant review panelists this year. I'm Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator for the Arts Board, and then I also manage our arts education grants. So I will be working with all of the arts ed and folk arts panelists, and you've already received plenty of emails from me, so I know we've been in touch, but just a big thank you again.
And I'm Karen Geschko. I'm the Assistant Director at the Arts Board, and I get to coordinate the local arts panel within this program. And moving on to, let's start off with the local arts panelists, just because that's where I'm familiar. Katie, would you mind starting?
Sure. Hi, my name is Katie Avila Lockmiller, local arts panel. And sorry, what else am I supposed to be saying?
That's good. You're calling in from Milwaukee?
Calling in from Milwaukee this morning. So I'm a little crazy, but I'm here. I have a show opening up tonight at Latino Arts. So
we'll try to be really focused in these 45 minutes or 40 minutes that are remaining. All right, great. Thank you. Carolyn?
There we go. I had to find the unmute button. Good morning. My name is Carolyn Nelson Kavayets. I am from Superior, Wisconsin, and I am the director of Sterling Silver Studio, which is a performing arts school here in Superior. We've been here for 30 years and also on the board for Superior Council for the Arts.
Great, thank you. Ken?
Good morning. I'm Ken Carlson, calling in from Burrell, Wisconsin. And I work for Arts Midwest on the local arts panel.
Great. And I have two kids who are schooling from home today, and one of them is being a little loud. So Caitlin, why don't you kick off and introduce ask the arts ed and folk arts panels to introduce themselves? And
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Karen. Let's see. Bawaja Gateway, you want to get us started?
Sure. Bonjour, good morning. Hello, my name is Bawaja Gateway. I'll put a name pronunciation in the chat, not that you're going to probably be using my name today.
Yeah, you can hear me. For some reason, my Zoom, I can't hear the audio.
Oh, there we go.
I'm calling from Ashland, Wisconsin. I'm in my classroom. I work in 7th grade.
Oh, is this
I'm a special education teacher.
Yes, if you can.
And I'm working with Caitlin on the Wisconsin Arts Board.
Oh, you can't hear it. Yeah, no, I
Thank you. Symphony, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
This has never happened before. Is it this one? Yeah, try that.
Symphony, can you hear us?
That's weird. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I.
Oh no.
Why don't you?
She's popped in. Ted, you want to go ahead, and I'm just gonna.
Sure. Ted Ham. I am calling in from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where I'm the head of the Etude Schools, the set of charter schools within the Sheboygan Area School District.
And Carol
Is muted.
Yes, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm Carol Dolly, calling in from Hudson, Wisconsin. I was the Hudson Middle School choir director for 40 years. I worked with the Wisconsin choral directors for many, many years, the Wisconsin School Music Association for many, many years. Let's see, I sit on the board of directors for the Phipps Center for the Arts, which is a nonprofit here in Hudson, and I'm the coordinator of the Music Council.
Thanks, Carol. I think those are all of our arts ed panelists for now. And then the folk and traditional arts panelist, Iris, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Iris, and I'm the Native American Center Coordinator at UW-Stevens Point. I served on the folk arts panel before, about 2 years ago, I think. And I am in Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
Thanks, Iris. Sergio, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sergio Gonzalez, Assistant Professor of Latinx Studies at Marquette University. I sit on a few different boards, Wisconsin Labor History Society and Voz de la Frontera, and I am on the Folk Arts Review Committee.
And Sally Anna?
Hi, I'm Sally Anna. I am a folklorist. I currently work at Folklore Village. We're a traditional arts nonprofit in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. This is my second year on the panel. I'm excited to see more folk arts funded in Wisconsin this year. Hooray.
Thanks, Sally. And Krippa.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Krippa Bhaskaran. I'm calling in from Brookfield, Wisconsin. I direct the Indian classical arts company called the Natyarpana Dance Company based in Wisconsin. I teach out in Brookfield, Pewaukee, and New Berlin. And I've been associated with the Wisconsin Arts Board for a while. And I've been a master teacher artist, but this is the first time I'll be serving as on the panel. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Krippa. And Symphony, I think we have you now. Can you hear us?
I can. My computer was doing something crazy, so I'm on my phone right now until it can restart. So, hi, everyone.
No problem. We were just asking, the arts ed panelists, if you want to just introduce yourself and where you're calling in from.
Sure. I am Symphony Zawadi. I am the Director of Programs here at Arts at Large in Milwaukee. I am a former art teacher. I taught K-8 for about 5 or 6 years, and then I was a school administrator for about another 4 years. I'm a visual artist myself, and I run an arts collective in my own time called Blank Space Milwaukee.
Thank you, Symphony. And I think Dale might be our last one if he wants to introduce himself, our behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm not really here, but yeah, my name is Dale Johnson. I kind of work in the background with our grant management systems and thought I would be here and see what I could learn about your experiences using them.
Great. Thank you, Dale. Yes. Yes, without Dale, the scoring and many other things don't happen. So yeah. Okay. So the next thing we'd like to do is just thank you all for the work that you put into phase 1, reading those initial project idea proposals and determining which ones were strong enough to invite into phase 2. What you will see, hopefully later on today, if we can get them in shape to share them with you, is the, actually, I think we're already there, aren't we, Caitlin? Are the applicants that accepted your invitation, which is most of them, but not all of them. Writing grant proposals in a pandemic is, as you can imagine, and probably know some of you from experience, a bit of a heavy lift, heavier than usual. So today we have one actual application in phase 2 to walk through with you so that you understand the process, know what to look for, and we will again make all of these applications available to you, I think now, if you are at a place where you can both Zoom and log into Smart Simple and see what is before you. If you have not yet done that, maybe you could do that while I continue with a couple more points here.
And I'll jump in to say, yeah, if you are a local arts panelist, you should see, unless there's a conflict of interest, there should be 18 pending applications. And then folk arts, I think we have 6 pending applications and 13 for arts ed. And again, it might be, 12 if you have a conflict of interest.
Yeah. So I think we have everybody but Symphony on screen. Symphony, are you at a computer where you can see that too?
As soon as it completes its restart, I will log on.
All right, fair enough. Well, tell you what, so Caitlin is, we're also going to be doing a voice through as Caitlin moves through what the sample application that we've chosen to, so you can hear that. So in addition to asking you all to read each application that is before your panel thoroughly, we ask each panelist to be a primary reader for a fifth of the applications about in the category, and a secondary reader for another fifth. We'll send those assignments out so you know what your primary reader and secondary reader assignments are by the end of today. Please study first those applications that you've been assigned to as primary reader. On the panel meeting day, your presentation of the application to the panel as primary reader should be brief, 2 minutes maximum, because each application only has 10 minutes for work sample and support material review and discussion in general. We keep it pretty focused. When you present, please state the following, and I've put this in the chat too, and we'll again have it in the chat on the panel meeting day. But we're going to ask you to basically say, this is the applicant. We'll probably say as staff, this is the next application, so you'll know who the applicant name is, and then you'll do, this is the city and town, a very short summary of the project. Everyone will have read it, so you are just reminding them of which project they're looking at next. So you're kind of grounding them in that. The amount requested for the project, the application's strengths and weaknesses as they relate to the evaluation criteria. So you're going to say, as I read through this, these are the pieces that I felt were strongest. These were areas of concern. And then you're going to turn to the secondary reader, who will either say ditto or interesting, I actually had a different read on that, or they may add a few more points to what you have already outlined for the panel. And then the other 3 people will jump into the conversation. We love to have all 5 of your voices on each application. Just a note, past panelists have noted that reading one of your primary reader assignments sort of right away as soon as you can, unless you have a show opening tonight or something. When you get it, it will help you kind of gauge the time that you need to read the rest of the applications. And we have given you plenty of time this year, so that shouldn't be a problem. Again, secondary readers just act as backups for the primary, called upon to give comments on strengths and weaknesses. It's really important that you have a thorough understanding of all of the applications, and especially your primary and secondary assignments. Each panelist will participate in reviewing and scoring every application. So your score as a non-primary or secondary panelist will carry just as much weight as that of the primary and secondary. Focus on the evaluation criteria, which we outline within the review sheet, and we'll go through that with you shortly. And take notes there. You can certainly also put questions in there. Like, I really didn't find this in the application, did anybody else? So that when you get to the panel day, you can ask that question of your fellow panelists if you have questions. The scoring and comment sheets provide the criteria by which all applications will be judged. Many applicants ask for kind of a written feedback, and these comment sheets form a primary source for this information. We generally don't share the sheets themselves. We usually do a synopsis of what you say, but it's important to have that primary material for us to reference. I think, yeah, the other really important thing to say about that is you'll see numerical score boxes for your scores after you submit your initial review of the application. Don't put any numbers in there until after you've had a chance to talk with the other 4 people on the panel. So that's an actual panel day activity. Until then, just leave those boxes blank. And if you have any questions about the applications, please contact Caitlin or contact me. Please don't contact the applicant. This would definitely violate procedural rules for the review process. The other comment to make about your work on those review sheets, if you think you may give an applicant less than a perfect score on the panel day in any of the sections when the panel meets, and I'm pretty sure you won't be giving perfect scores across the board, please take time on the comment sheet to articulate why that is. Negative comments, of course, must be constructively articulated as well as positives. So we have something to tell them when they ask why they didn't score higher. This really provides some good stuff for them to work on for the future. So in some ways, we're also offering them a deep educational opportunity if they're open to that within this process. Please remember that financial need is not one of the criteria by which we ask you to judge these applications. I guess, Caitlin, the only other thing we talked about here is that this year in particular, we were talking about this at the staff meeting this morning, has been a heavy lift for everybody. So merely submitting the application successfully yesterday, which was the deadline, Caitlin and I and George and Dale kind of give everybody huge kudos. We are definitely not saying that all of the projects before you should be funded, but we will ask that if there are a few details missing, or they may have made a few misspellings or whatever, that this year especially, you maybe give them a little extra grace. Don't suggest something that really shouldn't be funded. Pity is also not one of the criteria, and none of these will elicit pity. They're all, they all have really awesome aspects. It really is, just asking you to maybe take an extra deep breath as you review some of the niggly details. Caitlin, did you want to? I've been talking a lot. Did you want to throw out anything before I just jump into a couple other notes to keep in mind?
I think if you want to, say those notes to keep in mind, and then you started to mention that sort of initial review, final review process and the scoring, and I can, walk us through that when I share my screen. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you go ahead.
All righty. Then please keep in mind that you need to consider the community that the applicant is serving and judge the project accordingly. You're not going to expect that a small rural project would have the same kind of resources available to it as that of a project taking place in a large urban area, for example. Different resources. I'm not making a judgment call on what is better or worse, just different. You need to direct your comments according to the criteria. If you have concerns not directly related to criteria issues, please mention them as suggestions for the applicant to strengthen its project and next year's application. But bottom line, if we don't ask them to provide the information, you can't knock them down for it. Back in the day, some panels did, and so we're really careful with that piece of orientation in these days. Please know that supporting project that directly benefit relatively few people, but in an in-depth way that makes sense and is of high quality, is just as valuable to us as projects that have an impact on many people. So you can go for broad exposure, or you can go for really deep stuff. I'm not saying that if you are going to put on the musical of Annie and you expect 5 people to show up, that's a good thing. But take the project into context and know that we are not just looking at the numbers. We have a 3-year limit for projects. So if a project says that it is in its 3rd year, that's great and it's eligible. What we mean by this is not that they've applied to us for up to 3 years, but that the applicant has done the project with our funding or without it for up to 3 years. So if the project is only for 1 year, that's fine. If the project is in its 2nd or 3rd year, it's okay to continue, for them to continue to request support for the core pieces of the project, especially if the project is growing steadily, bigger or deeper or more stable. They should indicate some evaluative insight at some point in the narrative from previous years, if this is something that they've been doing for a bit. If the project has existed longer than 3 years, the applicant needs to apply for a new component, an expanded activity to the original project, and only the new expenses related to that expanded activity are eligible for funding. And we can take specific questions on that if you have any at the end here or as you're going through the applications. But for example, if someone has been doing a series of arts exhibits and now they are going to visual art exhibits, and this year they're proposing to add into that series some performing arts aspects, they would ask us only for the costs associated for the performing arts aspects, for example. We do place a high importance on paying professional artists, and we also really believe that local artists are great to support within these projects, as are non-local. We expect project income and expenses to balance within the budget, and we will be going through the budget shortly with you guys so you can get a sense of what we look for and what we're asking you to look for financial health and and all that good stuff. The only other note I had was to ask whether we sent you W-9 and new supplier forms earlier. If you guys could go a yes, we've gotten those, or no, we don't know what you're talking about, that would be really helpful to us. I'm seeing some no's, so we're going to send those. And if we send them again, that's okay. I'm making a note there. All right, that's all I have. Been talking a long time. Does anybody have any burning questions before Caitlin starts some screen sharing here?
All of those things you just shared with us, are they also found on the online? I mean, I was taking some notes on what you said, but I couldn't get it all down. So is that written down someplace else as well?
Most of it is. Some of my asides are not.
I didn't mean that.
This recording will make available to you too, for sure. But we have a basic panel orientation sheet that we'll be sending out to you. I'm not sure that we sent it out for the phase 1 or not. I'll double check that, but yes. And always, if you have any questions, please ask them. Thanks for asking a hard question right off the gate there, Carol.
All right, go ahead and share my screen here.
Great, thank you.
And I am just sort of emulating actually as one of our panelists who is also a organization contact for an organization in our system. So I think, you know, Krippa, this might be your situation as an individual artist who's applied. You'll have this panelist home screen that you'll click. You will see the pending, you know, local arts, the 18 pending applications. And from there, you can just go ahead, same way you did in phase 1, open them up, and then we'll just open up the Arts at Large application here. And right off the bat, you'll see the comment and scoring sheet, and you'll, again, maybe wonder where the application is. You can either use that application summary option to generate a PDF that'll open, you know, download and open in a separate screen, or I usually prefer this Actions tab and then View Grant in split screen. And that allows you to view the, you know, the full application and all of the sort of tabs that you'll move through on the left-hand side and the actual comment and scoring sheet on the right-hand side. And Karen mentioned the sort of initial review, final review. So this initial review will just be your comments and questions that you have related to the application in phase 2. You'll hold off on the numerical scores until the day of the panel review. And at that point, your home screen will have those 18 applications or 13 or 6 applications in initial review status. From there, if you open them, you'll see a spot to enter the actual scores. So, you know, out of 6, out of 4, it's a 20-point total. And after the discussion of each application is when we'll give you time to actually enter those scores and submit your final review. So in terms of walking you through the application, you know, for those who reviewed in phase 1, a lot of this will look familiar on the Applicant Information tab. This is really the kind of boilerplate information, registration information, and then hopefully everyone has, you know, since added their mission statement and organization history pieces to the application. And the bottom piece here, the sort of demographics and community description, is really just to give you some context on, you know, where this proposed project will be taking place. The next tab, and you can kind of either next, well, I think you should be able to hit the next, but you can just click the narrative tab. Oh no, it moved me over. The project details tab. So again, a lot of this will be kind of carryover from the phase 1 application. And the only, you're welcome to reread the phase 1 summary if you'd like to sort of get a sense of, you know, what they anticipated for that application back in January, but also know that a lot has shifted since between January, end of January and March 4th. So this is not part of, you know, the content necessarily that you'll be reviewing in the phase 2. It's just a little more context to, you know, framing of the project that they're proposing. But project start and end dates, those I would think remained the same, but we do just ask you to note, after July 1, 2021 is the first eligible start date for an FY22 project, and then should wrap up by June 30, 2022. And from there, I think on this page, really it's just the information, sort of the projection on the artists that will be involved, and then the people served by the project. This is sort of new information in phase 2, but the rest of it is really carryover from phase 1.
The only other thing to maybe look at on that page is the community description. Is that, or is that somewhere else?
That was
Caitlin?
on that first applicant information tab is the community description and demographics piece.
The reason I'm sorry that I missed calling that out. The reason that we ask them to provide that to you is so that you get a sense of these communities from their perspective, the issues that the communities are dealing with, and in some cases, it's helpful for you to align the project that they're proposing within the larger community issue context. So that's there for reference. Sorry, Caitlin.
No, thank you. And then really this is the narrative is the bulk of the application, I would say. And we kind of say that the narrative is sort of the verbal piece, and the budget is the numerical piece. So those will sort of speak to each other, and you'll see that when you review both. But we kind of lay out here the exact questions that the applicants see as they're working through the application. And there are 4 to 5 questions here, but we do ask that they kind of keep it to a 2,000 word, 4-page max there. And as you work through, this artistic, educational, cultural value, the artistic merit piece will likely be part of the work sample that you'll also review. But as you read through the 4 evaluation criteria, you can kind of assess, which pieces of the application fit into which of the criteria. And from there, Karen, you have any other comments on the narrative itself?
Nope.
Great. So then, here's the sort of numerical half of it. And the budget tends to sort of can hang folks up and can be a little tricky, I think, especially this year. This top part, this organizational budget piece, is where we ask sort of for the last year, the current year, and the next year kind of projected operating budget. And this is really just to give you all a sense of how this work fits into the bigger picture of the work that the organization does.
I'm going to interrupt for just a minute, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Some of these, especially in the local arts category, some of the applicants this year are coming through fiscal receivers. So they have not yet obtained their nonprofit status, and they are project-based as organizations. And from our perspective, that's fine too. We're not looking for an organization with a $100,000 budget to suddenly come to us with a project budget that is like 150,000. We're not asking for groups that have solid organizational finances to take on projects that are even larger than themselves. That would sort of be a red flag. But if there's a small project-based organization that is taking on a project that is the bulk of its organizational budget, that makes sense for the mission of that organization. And for us, that is not a red flag. Although again, I'm happy to talk with you all about that if you have specific questions as you go through the applications. But as Caitlin said, the organizational budget piece is just to provide you with the context. Some of them are on calendar years. So especially right now, for us to ask them for their calendar year 2022 budget was a stretch. And so we advised a number of them to just provide a mirror image of this year's budget projections. So that you could at least have a context of whether they think they're still going to be around, whether they're expecting to grow or shrink or whatever. And those who are on a different fiscal year, like a fiscal year that right now they're in a fiscal year that ends June 30th of 21, that's a much more reasonable ask for their next fiscal year, which would be the fiscal year into which this proposed budget would fall. So just take those different timelines into account when you're looking at that piece, please.
And
right, we're going to delve deep into this, aren't we, Kaylin?
yeah.
Okay, it's a tiny on my screen. I'm sorry. Did
Oh,
you want to kind of go through? Income's pretty self-explanatory, but were there any highlights that you wanted to?
Yeah, I think income is typically pretty self-explanatory. In terms of applicant cash, we do say that staff time of applicant organization staff time dedicated to the project, we sort of count that as cash. There's often a sort of, is that in kind, is that cash? And we count that as cash. So that is something you might see here in this applicant cash. It might also be just institutional support from the organization there. But like Karen said, the income's typically pretty straightforward. It can be the expenses that get a little more tricky. And part of that is, applicant organization personnel. So that's paid staff time dedicated to this project as an expense. Sometimes that gets mixed up with the artistic fees and services for, artists that are invited to or partnering with the applicant organization on a particular project. It gets, like I said, it gets tricky, and this is sort of where we say, have a little grace for them this year, be patient with them this year, just because the budget seemed to be a real hurdle for some this year. I think we've sorted, I think all of them are balanced at this point, but if you do have any questions, please reach out to, Karen or me, and we will answer any questions, to the best of our ability.
Yeah. We're not seeing a lot of travel this year, as you can imagine, but some projects do involve travel, and that's just fine. They're trying to figure things out in a time when there's a lot of uncertainty about gathering in groups. So we'll see some of that. Yeah, so you're kind of seeing the detailed budget in that upper section, and then we provide a summary at the bottom. And you might just want to, frankly, go there first as you get to the budget tab, and go all the way down to the project budget summary and see where they're saying their income sources are coming from and where their expenses are going out to. And then you can go back up for detail if you need that. That column on the right is where they're saying, if I'm requesting $6,000, this is where I'm putting that. I'm putting, X number in artist costs, both for our staff and for the artists that we're contracting with. And I'm putting 1,000 of it into some of that operating expenses that I outlined above. So that should be pretty straightforward at this point, since we've looked at them. Yeah, and then let's hold questions until we just finish with the board and staff. Time flies so much with you guys. It's so quickly. We're already at 11:36. So.
Yeah, so from there, board and staff, pretty self-explanatory here. Board members, a sort of arts area of interest if relevant or if appropriate. And then if the organization does have paid staff, you'll see their staff listed here with their position titles. If not, they will have just checked no paid staff, and that's absolutely fine too. And you won't see any names listed there. Accessibility, in terms of access to the proposed project and also the facilities and event spaces there. So just a bit of detail in terms of accessibility. And then evaluation is information that those tools that they, in the phase 1 application, would have just checked, we anticipate using these evaluation methods. In phase 2, we ask them for some more detail on, the sort of who, when, and where details about the evaluation methods that they noted in phase 1. And from there is the work sample. So again, you'll see the phase 1 work sample there. It, may be less relevant now, a month and a half later, depending on how the project is taking shape. But the phase 2 application, whether it's digital images, links, or videos or audio that have been uploaded, will be available on this tab, and they'll provide some description of those materials here. And
Sorry, we
Oh,
did
go ahead.
say that if they submitted the work samples that they felt were strongest in phase one, they can keep those as their work samples for phase two. Again, this is the section that you determine the artistic quality and merit of the project from. And so if they've already provided that to you in phase one, that's fine. You can review it again here.
And for some of these video files, they will have a sort of start and end time for you. If it's a really long video, I'll hope that they've given you a start and end time. And that's the bulk there of the work samples. From here, support materials. This is detail that those organizational budgets that we ask for, operating budgets that we ask for on the budget tab. This is the sort of detailed uploads of each of those fiscal years here. Artistic and administrative personnel bios. That's pretty self-explanatory, but it'll give you a better sense of who's working on this project. If they are working with a significant partner organization, a letter of support from that partner. And then an evaluation tools, some of their evaluation materials that they'll upload here. And then the optional piece, as they're listed, it might be an educational material, it might be several support letters, a recent newsletter. And then the last option here, other, I can think of one applicant off the top of my head, a folk arts applicant that added other, but it's really, it might be that there wasn't another space in the application that it made sense to include this particular context. So the one I'm thinking of is sort of a note, but we do ask that they just sort of check with us on that. And I can't see us saying no to any of those uploads, but I can only think of one right now that has used the other. But it just, like I said, might be anything that didn't fit quite as well into another part of the application. And then from there, the certification tab, which you really don't need to worry about, that's sort of internal. And once you've reviewed the full application, you'll work your way through kind of comments that you have on phase one, or sorry, on the initial review. And this additional comments tab here, if there's anything in particular that you think would have strengthened the proposal, that'll be really helpful to the applicants moving forward. And if you have questions that you want to just sort of note to self to bring up to your other panelists on the day of the panel, something that you might have missed or you had a question about, this is a fine place to do that too. Like Karen said, we won't print these out and send them directly to the applicants. We'll sort of provide summaries of your feedback after the phase two review. I think that that's the bulk of it. For the folk arts panel, we will have the folk arts apprenticeship applications will be a part of this review, so they'll show up the same way as pending applications, and you'll move through them just as you do this. You'll add your comments and questions, and then on the day of, you'll add your numerical scores. The apprenticeship application deadline is next Thursday, so I typically take probably about a week to follow up if there are some questions and any really necessary technical assistance with those applicants. So those should be available, I think, by March 18th. And then that's about a month out from, more than a month out from our meeting date. Arts Ed, Monday, April 19th, and Folk Arts, Friday, April 23rd, and Local Arts, I think, is a Monday, the 9th, April 9th.
Yep. Can you, I think we're good with the screen sharing. If you wouldn't mind dropping that. Thank you, Caitlin. That was awesome. We have a few minutes, and please know, Caitlin and I will stay on this call for as long as you guys want with questions, but we also want to honor that 45-minute time frame. So do you have any burning questions right now, especially those that you think other people might have? And it would be great to articulate.
Do you want something written in every paragraph where it says comments? Do you want comments in every single one?
If there's really nothing other than looks good, that's fine. But if you have them, especially as a memory jiggle to you as you get into the discussion, it would be great to have them there. Yeah.
A memory jiggle. I don't think I've ever heard that, Karen. And they are, you'll see there's a red asterisk next to each of them. So it is a required field. That's just sort of how the system works, for better or worse. So if you don't have any comments, write, NA or none, or you could probably even put hit the space bar a few times and it would, read it as complete. But just know that if it's keeping you from submitting your initial review, that's probably why.
Good catch. Thank you. Yes, right. Okay. Other questions? I have great faith in Caitlin and my ability to do an orientation, but I'm entirely sure that we haven't answered every single thing. But if you want to sort of, Symphony.
As a point of clarification, just because I kind of got in a little late, I'm looking in my screen. There are 13 pending. You all are going to send out more notifications to let us know if we're primary or secondary readers for those 13.
Yeah,
you're looking at them all, and then you'll find out which of those 13 you're primary on and which of those 13 you're secondary on.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that'll be our agenda for that day too. So it'll give you a sense of what time we anticipate wrapping up by that day. And I think Karen and Symphony, it might have been right before you were able to jump on. Karen copied and pasted the sort of, as a first reader, the bullet points of, in your maybe 2-minute summary of the application that'll get us started on the particular, your particular primary reader assignments.
And I'm putting that in again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna say my chat is empty, so thank you.
That's good. Oh, good. Yep. And we'll also have that again on the chat, on the day of as a prompt. All right.
Sally-Ann, I think I see a hand raised.
I guess this isn't really so much a question about, what's happening with this phase of things, but as somebody that was on the panels last year, I just wonder, like, what happens after the project period? Do they have to submit like a report? Like, I'm curious about the process.
Great question. And that should probably be part of our orientation process. So final reports for creative communities for the, project grants are due
30 days after the project ends.
Yes, which is typically, before, what do we say? Before July 1, 2022, I think we say June. No, maybe end of July.
End of July. Yep. So yes, we definitely do final reporting requirements.
Yep. And for the folk arts apprenticeship, it's a little different. Because I do typically conduct a site visit now that they're over Zoom, but I'll sort of either visit in person or virtually with the instructing artists and their apprentices and sort of and I'm in communication, we're in communication with the organizational creative communities applicants too, but it just looks a little different with the apprenticeship. But they, sort of keep a log of their activities, and then we do ask for a kind of brief final report on their apprenticeship, and that's when, for the apprenticeships, the last $1,000 of their payment they receive upon receipt of the final report.
So Sally-Ann, if you're interested in sort of seeing those, that's not something that we make available.
I see. I was kind of curious, the ones that we funded last year, like given COVID, I've been wondering like how those went for them, and hoping that they were able to do their work and everything. So
we could certainly share that with you, especially if they're not applicants this year. If they're applicants this year, then they better be telling you about that in their application form. But yeah, happy to satisfy your curiosity about your work last year.
And really, like, surprisingly well. I was worried, and when everything sort of started to shut down, I sent a note to everyone saying, are you able to meet rather virtually? Can you continue work with your apprenticeship or apprentices? And almost all of them really made it work. So it was actually pretty inspiring to see them, work through COVID that way. And I think that they were grateful for some time to focus on their practice. So
I would say ditto with some of the projects as well. Most of them went through. We had a handful, less than a handful, that said we just can't do this. I'm looking at 11:47, and again, we'll stay on for as long as y'all want, but if there are any burning questions before people actually have to head out, please ask them now. Otherwise, please accept our gratitude and our really almost complete accessibility to you over the next month. Do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you all.
Have
so
a good
much.
weekend, everyone.
Have a good weekend. We'll stick on for just a little bit, just in case, but take care.
Nice meeting you all.
Karen and Caitlin, I'll just jump in with a quick question. Karen, you mentioned earlier in our conversation today that there was, I can't remember the detail, something that tended to trip up panelists. And I'm wondering, I fully assume that if you're seeing anything that's tripping us up collectively or individually after reviewing phase 1, that you would be telling us that. But I just want to be sure that that's the case.
Yep. Yeah. If I was concerned about any reads on anything, I would completely reach out and say, wow, I'm so glad you brought that up. Here's our perspective on that. That's totally fine. Or good catch, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay. And then the second question, and forgive me if this was mentioned, would we by chance have access to the notes that we wrote in phase 1 if we want to review them, so as we can sort of go, oh, you know, I noticed this the first time. I wonder if they addressed it in this larger application.
I asked them to address this, did they? Yes, we can totally give that to you. Okay. Do you feel that that would be helpful just for everybody across the board? Just to, okay, I'm seeing some nods. All right.
Yeah, that was like the big thing because I probably had some really great questions that I don't know.
You did. You totally did. Great. Okay. So some of those questions you asked of applicants that are no longer in the mix. So we will extract those for the applications that are in front of you, and we'll go from there. Caitlin, I'd be happy to do that for the folk and arts ed ones if you need some assistance on that. You're carrying a lot here. Okay, great. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, we'll just, can make a note of that for future as well, that we just automatically do that for you.
Pardon my next question, in case it was also mentioned before I was able to get on. When is the next date for our meeting or the deadline for this to be complete?
Oh, good question. We definitely should have mentioned that. So the Arts Ed panel will meet Monday, April 19th, and that's when we'll send you that agenda either late today, Monday, I would say. That'll have those first and second reader assignments and the sort of timeline for that Monday. Complete that initial review anytime before that day. Okay. So
if we were really kind, we would mandate it on the Friday, so you would have your weekend to yourself. But I don't know that we're going to be that kind. We might say, if you need to work until 2 in the morning, do it. But hopefully you guys will do that, please.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was my burning question. So everyone have a great weekend.
Thanks, Symphony.
Thanks, Symphony.
I appreciate those questions. Those are helpful to me. Those are helpful questions to me too. So thank you for asking. I have a question about the guidelines. So I have stuff printed out for phase 1 guidelines. Was there something sent for phase 2?
Good question. Maybe I didn't send the full phase 2 guidelines. I'll email those when I send out the review agendas. We'll send I want to say a few. It'll probably be 6 attachments on there, unfortunately. But I'll send that in my next.
Okay, yeah, I was like feverishly searching my email at the start of the presentation, thinking, did I miss something? Usually you send out some attachments, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I feel lost. And then I tried to get back in and listen.
You did not miss anything.
So they're on the Creative Communities webpage, and I think Caitlin and I just kind of default to, oh, they're there, not, oh, these are panelists who aren't living in this world and they could use the guide. So
I appreciate I definitely, and knowing where they're located is going to be helpful. I'll make a note of that. And you're right. It's it takes skill to shift gears because I'm not in the same world all the time.
Of course not. So thanks for that. So all of these questions are awesome, and we will make a point of asking and answering them within the email that goes out to everybody who wasn't able to stay on, so they can benefit from your insights there. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. I have a quick question. Caitlin, I'm sorry if you talked about it earlier and I did not register. So for someone like me, who's the first screen on my panelist window, where it says register your organization. So do I have to go ahead and send an email out to that? No, it's already done, right? Okay.
Yeah, you should be good. Do you see a panelist tab in the right-hand corner? You'll see a home one and a panelist one.
Yes.
Yep, if you click the panelist one, that'll give you the screen that you need.
I'm
And
able to see everything else, but I just wanted to make sure if I got to register something in addition to, something that's done. Okay.
no, you're good. We've had questions where someone served as a panelist in the past,
Sure.
but then they also want to register the organization. The system just won't let you re-register.
Sure.
So it's a
Okay.
kind of email to Dale if you want to do that, but you can just ignore that. Want to
All right.
register my organization.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
question.
Lovely, lovely seeing everybody in person and nice to see Karen and all of you. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to serve as a panel member. It's certainly an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day and we'll work together on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Krippa.
Take care. Happy weekend.
You
to
too.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you all.
Right.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Yep, I'm going to jump out as well. So
Okay.
farewell, everyone. Thanks.
Take care. Bye. I think we can stop recording, Caitlin.
All right.